Good morning and welcome to the 5th annual Capitol Hill Maker Faire. Each year, the Capitol Hill Maker Faire marks an opportunity for us to gather together and celebrate the tremendous breadth of making and the impact that making has in the United States, in cities and towns, large and small, all over our great country. This year, although we're gathering a little bit differently, not in the halls of Congress, not in person in the Rayburn cafeteria, but online due to the COVID crisis, we thought that there was no better opportunity to showcase what the impact of the maker movement has been over the last year. Because in the last few months, I think everyone from cities and states all across our country have noted what the value of the maker movement is, as they watched individual people, in the absence of a functional supply chain, really come together to collaborate, to work together, to problem solve, to iterate on designs, concepts, turn them into true products and solutions, not only for our healthcare workers, but also the communities in America that have the greatest need, from our displaced and homeless to those within the prison system and others within society who have been neglected or otherwise forgotten. And so today, we're taking an opportunity not only to celebrate the efforts of the maker movement in our day-to-day lives, but also to put a special light on this making in the time of COVID, and really how that has propelled us to see the best part of ourselves as the movement. And so we'll start off today with a government panel featuring the Veterans Administration and the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, NIST, discussing how government agencies have adapted in the time of COVID by innovating and adapting distributed manufacturing tactics to the delivery of care. We'll follow that with a panel on the value of corporations across the United States that amplified the effects of things that they were already doing, and in some cases, pivoted other corporations to new responsibilities to not only provide solutions for COVID, but also to provide more avenues for people to come together as a community. We'll then go on to a panel about the general maker response to COVID, a collection of stories led by the Open Source Medical Supplies Group, which as a collaborative itself, as a community of 70,000 makers, over 70,000 makers, had an impact on over the production of over 15 million pieces of PPE produced in 55 different countries around the world. We'll then go on to the role of museums and libraries, acting as public community support in this time of crisis and pandemic. And we'll move on to the role of makerspaces and the ways that they foster truly equitable and inclusive communities. Thinking about things like, how do we truly distribute PPE equitably? How do we realize the true promise of the maker movement in things like education, job creation, and economic development? And then we'll wrap up with our final panel, which is really addressing a question we all have, which is how does education change? What does education look like in this time of COVID and beyond? And how can the maker movement really help address some of the needs that we have? And again, going back to equity and inclusion, how do we make sure that each child has the access to the education that they each deserve to become full participants in our country and in the future of our country? How can we provide that type of education in this really uncertain time? And so it's going to be a really exciting day today, but today is not the only day. Usually our fair is only one day, but this year we're really excited to say that since we moved online, our fair will be 2 days long. And so we're really excited about that. We invite you to come back tomorrow. Depending on your time zone, it'll either be 1 p.m. or 10 a.m. when our showcases will start, but please do consider visiting our maker showcases before then and then after then. And if you're wondering, what are our showcases? Well, what's happening is that makers from around the country will be showcasing what they're doing in very different ways. Some folks have panels and talks. There are others that have videos or demonstrations. There are a few games that are going on, and there's a numbers maze that I've heard about, which is really amazing and exciting. So I invite you to come and check it all out. Everything is on the Sketch app, which you use to access this session right now. And so we encourage you to use that app to explore our makers and all the things that they're doing around our country. We have dozens of makers joining us from all across the United States that are really excited to showcase what they're doing with you. And I invite you to really think about the promise of the maker movement as you listen to all of these panels and you look at all of the showcases that you see. If you heard anything here, if you hear anything over the next 2 days that you'd like to follow up on, I also encourage you to reach out personally to me. I'm Dorothy Jones Davis, the Executive Director of Nation of Makers. Dorothy@nationofmakers.us is my email, and I'm always happy to discuss with anyone how we can work together in partnership to really realize the full promise of the maker movement. One thing I want to say in closing is that this moment in time is really remarkable for so many reasons. But I think the most remarkable thing is the testament that it's been to the collective power of the individual efforts of the American people to be able to work together across our country and even with partners across the globe to address our common needs and concerns as the human race. And as we face more challenges, and I know we will, unfortunately, with climate change, natural disaster, and disease impending, I know that the spirit of can-do-itness, the resiliency that the maker movement provides, and the opportunity to work together inclusively will only strengthen our great country. I really hope that you leave here today and tomorrow understanding the tremendous impact of our movement on the world, and that you join me in thinking about how we can continue to take this American spirit of perseverance and innovation in a time of need and push it forward, not only during the time of COVID, but beyond. So thank you for today. I would now like to introduce our next speaker, Karen Rawls from Chevron. Chevron is very special to Nation of Makers. They have not only been a supporter of the Capitol Hill Maker Faire since its inception, but also a fantastic partner and supporter of Nation of Makers since its beginning. We are grateful for their support and their vision in supporting the American maker movement in so many different ways and all the promise that it brings. Karen Rawls is the Senior Social Investment Advisor at Chevron Corporate Affairs, and she's based in Coraopolis, Pennsylvania. At Chevron, Karen is responsible for the direct consulting report to field practitioners and leaders and U.S. business units, and so much of what Chevron does in education. Karen herself is very esteemed, and she began in Chevron as a marketing representative in 1991 and progressed through assignments of increasing responsibility. She received her MBA from Morgan State University in 1987 and her BA in political science from the University of Pittsburgh in 1985. Karen really understands what the maker movement is about and what it means to create inclusive, equitable opportunities in STEM and making for all. It is my pleasure to now introduce Karen Rawls and to invite her to share her perspective as to why Chevron has continually invested in the maker movement. Karen, I welcome you today and thank you again for your support of the Capitol Hill Maker Faire since its inception and from Nation of Makers as well.